All right. What's going on, guys? This is Kelby back with top three. I'm kind of changing the format right now because I didn't really like the way it was. Um, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Um, I didn't like that I had to script it out and not be able to speak. Then I had to go edit it. It was a lot. So my friend Lou Magoo, said, you should pod by yourself. And I was like, I don't know, man. I love podding. I like podcasting, but I like having a conversation with somebody else. But the more I thought about it, is the more that I said, all right, let's try it out. Let's see what's happening. So this is top three with Kelby. Normally we talk about business, a lot of different aspects of business, small business, big business, a lot of things happening. So um, I'm gonna figure out the Spotify and where it's gonna be at some point in time. But right now, it'll probably just be on YouTube, Facebook. That's the vibe. So let's jump into the very first thing. I think, and I know before I was talking about like three main points. I like the name top three, so I might not. I might not talk about just three things. So let's jump into the first thing. The first big thing that I see is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's podcast. They sign a multi-year licensing deal worth more than $100 million with Spotify. That means a lot of different things. That means a lot of different things at the moment. The first thing is that the melding between traditional and non-traditional is is just exploding and expanding. What I mean by that is we have an audio format which is old, but the new version of it is raw, uncut, and what we see as podcasts, and how people are able to not have to spin music and be validated by these networks and companies, and follow by their rules, and not be and not be able to completely speak the way that they wanted to speak beforehand. So now it's a totally different experience that we're getting. So we see now Spotify replacing the companies that were putting regulations on their performers into now being the company that's really just more about solving the problem that was that. Why was radio dying? All these regulations, people were not able to completely relate to what they're hearing on the radio, whether it be the music, whether it be the personalities, because there was this ban of you being able to completely be yourself. Time-wise, how you speak-wise. We're seeing people now through podcasting being able to speak any kind of way, put out anything that they want. So now we see Spotify providing a home for people. Even YouTube beforehand, if you remember in like 2009-ish, YouTube would ban certain things from being able to be seen on their platform. And then they loosen it up a little bit, and it seems like it's kind of going back in that same direction, but not in the same way. Like maybe the algorithm won't show people your stuff the same way that it would if somebody was making family-friendly content. So now we see Spotify, the big goose, offering Joe Rogan $100 million or more, and I'm assuming A lot of that is going to come with bonuses and things that are going to come on the back end. So why is this significant? Last year, I'm sorry, 2 years ago, Spotify offers Joe Budden, the other Joe, I don't know how much. Speculation says that it's about $3 million. 3 million, let's call it 3 million for 3 years for his podcast, which shot up to be number one on the platform. And I think that for them, it was to gauge the value of podcasting. What I thought was interesting is that they put it on their platform for free. They put it on there for free. Because attention is valuable. I don't have to sell you anything to make a lot of money off of you. That's deep. So they do a multi-year licensing deal. It's worth more than $100 million. And we have another operative word here, which is licensing. Joe Rogan doesn't have to, number one, change his show at all. And number two, he gets to keep his show. Spotify, I think, saw the value in Joe Budden and said, okay, cool. Off this $3 million, I probably made 10. Speculation. I don't know. I'm making the numbers up. But, so podcasting is valuable, but it's never about the product. It's never about the product. It's always about a relationship. There's millions, I'm assuming, millions of podcasts out there. This essentially being one of them. But the relationship that Joe has with his audience is powerful. It's impactful. It's something that will go anywhere that Joe goes. So they're assuming that with this $100 million plus deal, they don't need to invest in marketing the show because they bought an all-in-one thing. They bought something that's already solidified with the people that follow it. So that's amazing. It's downloaded. The Joe Rogan Experience is downloaded almost 200 million times per month. Last year, he made $30 million. The show, not Joe, but the show, made him the highest podcaster of 2019. Highest paid. What does that mean for other podcasters? There's something I find that's interesting is that, yeah, I think people like Joe Rogan, but he also has relationships, great relationships with people that allow him to bring on these high-profile, interesting people that people want to hear from and allow him to sit across from them on his show. Spotify's paying for that. It's interesting that they're paying for this during a global pandemic when a lot of companies are not making any money. So, something that I have to ask is I've seen a lot of congratulations for Joe. I've seen a lot of people excited for him because, let's be honest, this $100 million is not $100 million. It's probably $100 million right now or $100 million and some change right now. But as the subscriber base, as the eyeballs for Spotify grow, which Spotify is already number one, as it grows, as it outpaces the next, you have to assume that he's going to be making more money. So let's call it $300 million. In 3 years from now, he could pack up his stuff and say, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm out. And he leaves with X amount of dollars. Spotify doesn't need to own it because out of 300 million that we're assuming he's going to make, they're probably going to make $500 million, if not more. And then they have a relationship built with these incoming people who are downloading Spotify to listen to Joe Rogan speak. They have a relationship with them, as now they're trying to edge themselves out of their competition of being the go-to platform for podcasts and, I guess, vlogcasts or whatever they're calling it, because Joe's gonna put his videos on the Spotify streaming platform. So they're going video. And I've been seeing I have Apple Music. I don't have Spotify. But I've been seeing that Apple Music has been trying to get into the video game. I don't know how successful that has been. I've only watched videos on my music streaming platform if they have an exclusivity thing happening. So, where's everybody attacking Joe Rogan for making this much money for sitting and talking to people? Because we saw a lot of that for Jeff Bezos. Let's remove the fact that for Jeff Bezos, who's slated to be a trillionaire by 2026, let's remove the fact that maybe he, let's say, uses sweatshops. I don't know for sure. Or that he underpays people or he exploits them, which I have an interesting relationship with the word exploitation. I think on the surface it sounds bad, but it's the nature of everything. And it could be used for a positive purpose. But I don't know if that's a conversation that we all want to have at the moment. But why isn't anybody saying that Joe Rogan shouldn't make $100 million? Nobody should make $100 million, because that's what I saw on Twitter when Rest in Peace Capitalism was trending. Hey, nobody should be worth $1 trillion. Tweeting from my iPhone. FedEx driver dropping off my Amazon boxes. I think the thing about business is nobody really values the risks that people take and how much people lose over X amount of time. And then when they're winning and they've provided opportunity for themselves and for other people, however many amount of people, once you're there, people just think that, well, I mean, clearly you just got there. You had a great relationship with a billionaire, and they gave you their money, and you figured it out. That's not always the case, man. It's not always the case, and a lot of people feel like most people who are wealthy or who have the money that maybe they desire to have was just born into it. But if you look at the numbers, let's type it into Google. How many people born millionaires? %21 of people who are rich, 21% of people who are born rich or born into rich families inherited their money. That means about 80%, 79% of millionaires or people that you deem to be successful made it on their own by sacrifice, by risking it all, only for them to make it to where so many people aspire to be and say, hey, it's not fair, dude. It's not fair. They solved a problem that somebody else couldn't, and they say it's not fair. So either way, shout out to Joe Rogan. I think that's amazing. I don't know what bar that sets for podcasters. Spotify is pretty much like YouTube a little bit. I believe that there's an upload button on Spotify, and you could just upload your stuff there. So that goes back to me saying that your product is never that important. Whatever it is that you're selling, it's never that important. The problem that you're solving is always at the top and the most important aspect of business. What I mean by that is clearly there was a need for this figure, this Joe Rogan figure. Clearly there was a need for that. And he provided a solution for people's problems, whether they realized that they had that problem or not, but he provided a solution for it. And now he's being paid because $30 million says, here's the solution that I solved. And it's by creating these, I'm not going to say unbreakable, but these very strong, powerful relationships with the people that are listening and the team of people that he decided to work with. So to that I say, congratulations, because so many people in business think that the product is so important. Imagine if Apple thought that the product was so important. They'd fail. Because it's not. Ultimately, the innovation that people expect from a company like Apple, they have that trust that, hey, you're Apple. You're not going to give me new technology that sort of works, that's ahead of the game like Samsung. Samsung might be ahead of the game and give you technology that works 70% of the time. But Apple's going to just see what you do with that, perfect it, and make sure it works 99% of the time, and then give it to you then. So they have that trust with their consumers to say it's not about the product, it's about the fact that you hold my hand and I hold yours. We have a good relationship with one another. And Samsung does the same thing too. That's not to say, because I have a Samsung phone and I have an Apple computer, and I personally, I can't say what's better, but I think that the relationship I have with Samsung is, next year we're going to try crazy stuff. Will it work all the time? Probably not. But the 10 out of 100 times that it does work is going to blow your mind. I like that. So, shout out to Joe Rogan. For other podcasters, does this mean? Well, it does. It does mean that we have to step our game up. Does that mean that we have to have Elon Musk on an episode? No. But I think that we, as podcasters, as creators, we get stuck into the fact that we're creating a podcast. Creating a podcast is the last thing that we're doing. We're solving somebody's problem. If you think about it in the sense of somebody who's creating a business, we're solving somebody's problem. So for me, if you're into business and you, like, a problem that I have is I don't have adequate people around me at all times that I can talk about the things that I like in detail. And maybe I can share in the way that I think without being like judged or anything. And I know I'm putting it on the internet, so I'm going to get judged. But I like to talk about business, and I like to talk about it in an open sense and not in an emotional sense, but I like to be analytical about what I'm seeing. So that's what I have to say on Joe Rogan. I asked a question on Twitter to say, If he didn't license the show, how much would he have gotten if he sold it to Spotify? I'm seeing the numbers around 500 million. But I don't think so. At first, I thought that the number was a little high, but now I don't think so. Because if you really think about it, you sell your company 10 times the value, so they say, because you're expecting, that's how much you're expecting you would have made in the following 10 years. And then you add the fact that, hey, for the past 5 years, we've been doing better in revenue. We've had incremental growth every year. We do 10 to 15% better than the year before. So you have to factor that in. So if he's making 30 million in 2019, you have to imagine that maybe he's doing 40 this year. 2020, no Spotify deal. So would it be worth it to Joe Rogan to sell his entity, to sell his property for $500 million? Probably not, because in 10 years, we can imagine that it would make more than that. Yeah. That's the math in my head. All right. Joe Rogan. Amazon. First trillionaire. I also don't know. Like, I've seen a lot of emotional people speak on the fact that, he shouldn't be we're moving topics. He shouldn't be a trillionaire because, they're hungry people and all that stuff. And it's unfortunate because to have extreme wealth is to have extreme poverty. One has to exist in order for the other to exist. And there's supposed to be this large middle section. How I feel about it and how I think about it, I think are two different things. When I think about Amazon not making a profit for 14 years, when I think about a guy who said, I'm going to sell books, and to consistently change their business model and be smart enough to lead. And the next thing I want to talk about is being a leader and what that means, and being adaptive enough to stick it through to the point where cities and states are bidding to have your company open up a factory or warehouse there, because it will mean such economic growth in that location. Let's see how many people work at Amazon. How many people are employed at Amazon? Here we go. We have 2019, they have 798,000 employees. That's nuts. So you telling me? Wait a second. Let's look at how many employees Disney has. So okay, remember this number: 798,000 employees at Amazon. You're telling me that a guy who oversees, not by himself clearly, but he's in charge for the livelihood of 798,000 people. Again, I'm not talking about the sweatshops and all the morally wrong things. At Disney. Disney has 62,000 employees. How much does the Disney CEO make? Let's see. Damn. 2016, Bob Iger, who's no longer the CEO of Disney, got out. Made $65.6 million. Didn't see a tear cry for that. And then the year after that, he made $47.5 million. And he's only in charge of 62,000 people. And when I say in charge, I think people really undervalue leadership and what it means to have these positions and these lives and these and the tasks in their hands. I think people undervalue that. So this guy is overseeing almost 800,000 people, responsible for. Here's another thing that I hear about, like, oh, there's so many boxes flying in the air. He's responsible for so much of earthly pollution. I think that the guy who solves the box issues, the box pollution issue, is gonna make a lot of money. And people are going to get upset about that. I should get into the box pollution solving game. So yeah. Stop buying at Amazon if you don't like it. If you feel morally stuck about the fact that this guy is making so much money because he's solved a problem. And I understand on the small business side, took out all these small businesses, but the world, the way that I justify that is that the world does adapt. With new technology, old things go. Brick and mortars go. Nothing lasts forever. That's just the way I see it. Though it is sad that, hey, I created this, but think about Commodore computer. Founded in 1954 and then defunct in 1994. Guess who took over that? Apple, biggest competitor. So many people working there lost their job. The company went out of business. And people are so fake angry because when companies go out of business, people are sad. But then when companies are thriving, people are upset. So, you can't really please anybody. So that's how I feel about the whole Jeff Bezos going to be a trillionaire thing. Morally, how do I feel? I use Amazon twice a year. So he solved the problem for me. And I paid for him to solve that problem for me because I couldn't figure it out myself. I have a movie on Amazon. I've made money from being on Amazon. That's what I can say about that. Okay, leadership. Being an effective leader is so wildly important. And it's not only the ability to see the direction in which the world is going, because it's not always about the way that your company or your entity makes money, because making money is a result of something else, which is proper relationships being built, deep-rooted, proper relationships being built. That goes from your relationship with your customers to your relationship with your team. A lot of times, you'll hear like a regular employee at a place say like, "Hey man, my manager doesn't even know how to do my job." Well, that's kind of the point. You delegate your weaknesses to somebody who is going to be better at what you can't do, or at least you can't do it very well. So when it comes to being leaders, a lesson that I learned during this whole quarantine thing is about the value of qualification. What does that mean? I took a workshop, and I run a video production company. And for years, I couldn't quite figure out why I'm stuck doing the same kind of work. Until this guy said, as the business owner, for a few lessons that I learned, let me take a few steps back. As a business owner, when I started the company, I was doing everything. I was running the camera, I was doing sound, I was editing, I was doing everything. And then after a while, not only did I get tired, I realized that I can't do everything. I'm not great at everything. That was a mind-blowing moment for me. I'm not great at everything. But something that I do have is the ability to round up some people and say, okay, this is what you're good at. Here's the vision. Because sometimes that a lot of people don't have is maybe they don't have the vision, or they don't have the end game. So sometimes they do need that person who's going to say, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. You have the ability, go out, kill, bring food home. But I don't know how to do it myself. But I have the vision. Let's see. I'm pretty sure the story goes that Steve Jobs doesn't know how to code or something like that, right? He doesn't know how to code. I'm Googling it. Know how to code. Steve didn't ever code. And some people are gonna say, "Oh, he's not a genius. He doesn't know how to code." Yeah, but this inside here, where you have the ability to map out where you wanted to go. Clearly, the other guys didn't have that, so you have to delegate those tasks to people who perform exceptionally well in that specific field, so that way they could bring it on home and you can paint your masterpiece. They could bring their small pieces to the picture, and you could then allow them to take a step back and see how valuable everything really is. All right, so back to qualification. So I decided that I'm going to delegate tasks to other people. And me, I'm not going to say I'm an expert relationship builder. I'm not there yet, but I am a pretty good people person. And I learned that it's because, for the most part, while I'm creating video, a lot of times I'm searching to give the person more than what they think they need. A lot of times people are going to say, hey, I want you to make a video for me. I will sit there and say, okay, what's the purpose of it? And I think that builds relationships with people, because the purpose behind the video is, hey, I want to make more money, or I want to express my art to a larger audience, or whatever the purpose may be. It gives me guidance so that I can then guide my team into the right direction, so that when you place your video wherever it needs to be placed, it performs to the best of its ability. All right. So I became the relationship guy, and then I call upon my team. I create best I can, and then we put everything together. So I got stuck in a certain position of saying, my goal is to make more money. I don't know how. I'm working and working and working, and I'm working, and I don't know how. I don't know why I'm not getting to the next level. Then comes this lesson of qualification, and it all clicked. As a leader, as somebody whose ears are wide open for all the questions and for all the problems, and for me to find solutions, sometimes on the spot or sometimes over time. I'm now gifted the understanding of why sometimes I'm going to say no, when beforehand I probably wouldn't have. But that goes with my goal and my vision. What do I want? And how do I want to get there? So my mindset totally changed from I'm going to be making videos to I'm going to make videos with people who are qualified, with companies and with brands that I feel are qualified to operate the way that I operate, that we have similar goals in mind, that we have the ability to invest into taking 10 steps closer to the goal. And that kind of started bleeding in. That mentality started bleeding into other parts of life. And which I think is why I'm able to make this podcast, to do this, or vodcast, whatever. Because I want to speak with people who are qualified more so than me. Another thing that I had an issue with was failing to understand, with the purpose of understanding. And that breaks down because I didn't have a mentor. I went to school and studied acting and was like, all right, I'm going to get into the video production game. So there was a lot of being kicked around so that I can then understand why I'm being kicked around. But I think that with a mentor, a leader, I would have been able to avoid so many pitfalls, so many failures that I had gone through, which I think is okay either way, because everybody learns a different way. But now I have valuable lessons that I'm able to share with you guys. And that's relationship building 101, is to share your value with someone else. So leadership. Now we're at this point where, as somebody who notices that the current landscape that we're in is so much about, I want to be my own boss, I want to run my own business, blah, 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 blah. And then you see the staggering number of businesses that fail so quickly. So quickly. I've come to understand a few reasons why that happens. Number one, we don't have adequate leaders. We don't have people who have real goals in mind. So sometimes the business format changes quickly. If this fails, we move on to that. That'll fail. Move on to that. We don't necessarily understand where we're going and why. Also, we're presenting the world with products and not value. There's so much difference. There's so many differences between products and solutions. And if you're sitting there explaining to the world, yo, this is my pick right here. It's got, 13 things and all that. Yeah, all right, cool. But we're not explaining that, hey, your hair is nappy and you don't want it to be nappy anymore. So use this tool to make your hair nappy. I know you've had a problem with your hair being so nappy that when you run your fingers through it, it like will break or whatever it is. I know I use this pick for my nappy beard. No problem with that. But I want to pick it out. I want it to be lush and full. So I use this because it provides value to my life. It provides value to it's a solution to the problem that I'm having. So a leader, a manager needs to think about that. They need to have a goal, a strategy in mind. They need to be great communicators. They need to be able to explain to the team, this is my goal. This is how we're going to get there. And I'm telling this to everybody from the person that's cleaning the office to the person to my right-hand man. Everybody has to be on the same page as far as where we're going. So many companies like to keep that closed door thing of, okay, all right, this guy knows where we're going, but maybe not that guy. Ineffective. Everybody needs to know where we're going. That's part one. Then the second part of that is everybody needs to be motivated. And leaders are supposed to do that. And it's not only like, hey, you can do it and all that stuff. When you're picking your team and you're qualifying them, your team needs to understand their value in the puzzle, in your world. Without you, this would not be possible. From the very bottom to the very top, everybody has immense value. And a leader needs to be able to quantify qualifications. So I know, like, sometimes I see younger companies, and especially companies that have a lot of funding. They have young leaders who maybe they don't necessarily have a vision. They have a product. How quickly can we flip this? And they're not interested in building relationships with their clients or their team. And we see the boat sink. Now, I know it's not cool to work with older people, but I think the wisdom that comes from those years of failure or success is valuable, because everybody needs mentorship. Everybody needs a leader. Until you become that guy who has surpassed your leader, which is supposed to happen. But there are many companies that are ego-driven, people who feel like they've created a product that solves no problems. But it's cool. It's not a factor for sustainability. So even on the employee level, if you're going into an interview and you are lucky enough, or you feel like you're in a position, or you're prepared enough, let me not even say lucky, you're prepared enough to be in a position where you understand that your company represents you, and it represents what you stand for. It represents your work. It represents your ethics, your morals. When you're able to walk into an interview, you're able to ask those questions of the type of leadership that they have at that company. Because if they align with your work ethic, they align with your morals and your values, then you'll be able to choose something that doesn't drain you as a person. Because cool can only last so long. Innovation rules the world. And only an adequate leader, manager, can provide true innovation. And that happens by building trusting, lasting, powerful bonds with everybody, from their consumer base to their team. Mega important. Mega important. And that's a lesson that I learned in this whole quarantine situation. Qualify the people that I work with from my team, and then qualify the people that I work with as my consumer base. There's so much power that comes when you understand both sides deeply. That's what switches you from being somebody who pushes products to somebody who builds relationships. Because as somebody who's worked with the same group of clients for years and years and years, they trust that when I tell the team, yo, this is the vision, this is what we're doing on a creative end, that they're going to get the same level of quality or better every single time. That's why they keep coming back. As somebody who understands that, I get this feeling. I get this strategy of being able to qualify the people that I work with. If you think about luxury brands, going back to Apple, if you think about luxury brands, going back to Mercedes, they cater to very specific crowds because they're qualifying the people that they're selling to, working with, partnering with. Because when you buy a luxurious item, or you purchase an experience that's luxurious, you're putting your trust and your dollars, your time, your energy into something that you believe in. And that's why companies like Yelp and reviews are so important, because they validate the relationships that people have with these brands or companies. It's wildly important. It's not just, hey, this is good or this is bad. If you go back to Amazon, the number one thing that they focus on is not what they sell you. The business from selling books online has never changed. You might think it has because now they offer everything, but their biggest thing is customer service. I know this for myself because I bought LED lights on Amazon and they came like kind of messed up. I think they started like frying a little bit. It's not Amazon's fault because I bought it from a retailer on Amazon. But once I reached out to Amazon, it was like they sent me, I bought one pack. They sent me like 4 packs. Didn't have to pay anything. And that's when I was like, okay, I see what this is. Customer service is always the most important aspect of their business. No matter what product they're pushing you, the The problem was that people didn't have great relationships with their retailers. People were, especially online, because you're purchasing something that you've never seen before. So the level of trust has to be super high. I'm giving you my money hoping everything will be okay. And then when it's not okay, I have to come back to you and hope. Yeah, I'm not ready for this. And hope that you're going to solve my problem. Take my money if you want to solve my problem. Goes back to leadership, relationship building. The world's greatest leaders, whether they're celebrities, celebrity leaders, quiet CEOs, the main thing that they operate off of is being great communicators and great relationship builders. I had a boss a few years ago who had told me, like, oh yeah, my kids. He was telling me about the fact that his children are kind of like B minus C students, but he's working on them being better students in school. But ultimately, he was like, the thing that I find most important is that they have good relationships with other kids in their class and with their teachers. So long as they have great relationships, I think they'll be fine. No matter, I mean, I don't want them to fail. I don't want them to not be able to perform well in school, but ultimately I want them to have the best relationships. And I sat on that for a few years and it was just like, because I'm a big school person. A lot of issues that I notice is in fledgling businesses is that people are simply just not educated on what they're doing. They're operating off of passion or they're operating emotionally, but they're not completely educated enough to make sound choices, which goes back to mentorship. School can operate as your mentor, or it can give you the pathway to get some great mentors. So I'm a big school person, despite the fact that I know in this day and age, school is just kind of whack, I guess, or whatever. But, I went back to school in 2018 and got my MBA, finished in 2019. And I found great mentors, and I'm continuing to find great mentors who open my eyes and open my mind to think a completely different way. And it's not because they spoke to me, it's because they spoke with me. But anyways, I cultivated those relationships so that I can go back to them whenever I need to. So, and for that, I'm grateful, extremely grateful. So, I sat on the fact that my old boss told me that. And I was just like, I didn't quite get it. Like, I understand, but I don't get it. It wasn't until this year that it really came into place. There's a really popular quote that says, if you can't have dinner with somebody, you should not do business with them. Boy, are there a lot of people I don't want to eat with. You know how your dog takes its treat and it goes back to its section to eat by itself? There's a lot of people out there that you don't want to eat with because it's such a sacred moment. Breaking bread together. That's where people laugh together. That's where people think together. That's where so many powerful ideas and momentum begins. So if I can't eat with you, I don't want to. All right. So that goes on being a great leader. Being a great leader is not just being the boss. It's having that foresight to sometimes say no. It's having that understanding, the knowledge to guide the team in the right direction and to be very specific with their desires, be very specific with their wants and needs. It's so powerful. What I've learned about leadership, because I've seen poor leadership, and I've seen the effect of poor leadership on companies, on teams, on employees, on relationships with business partners, relationships with consumers. And poor leadership it's incredible how detrimental a poor leader is to an entity. Think about that. I even think about that in music. That was supposed to be the end of that, but I think about that in music too. How sometimes when an artist creates their own label, but they're a big artist, so just the fact that they're a popular artist, it takes them away from being able to really be an effective leader for their own company. So sometimes, many times, the artists that they sign are not capable of getting to the points where they want to go because the leader is not directing. You often wonder in my field why some directors don't know how to turn on a camera, or some directors don't know how to light a scene, or they don't know how to do certain things. But the more you think about it, it takes that guy to not have an idea, but it takes that guy to have the vision and the points of execution to direct it to the experts to get the job done. That's why you're the director. All right. What else do I have? Talked about leadership. Talked about qualifying the people that you're with, qualifying the people that you work with or do business with. Talked about Joe Rogan. Talked about Amazon guy. I would love to know how you guys feel about that. And yeah. I do want to talk lastly, because I know some people don't like long podcasts. We're at an hour. I want to talk about lastly, you know what? I already did. The fact that it's never about your product. It's never about your product. It's always about the value that you're proposing. It's always about the fact that you are solving a problem. Your product is a tool that solves the problem, but the reason why people come to you is because you've built that relationship with people to say that, all right, we have this problem now, and then a year from now, that problem probably won't exist anymore because you've solved it and other people have grasped on to the fact that you've solved it, and now they're creating their own solutions for that, and they're creating their own relationships, and some people might like how they do it more than you do it. So next year's problem, you're working on solving that. And it takes a different mindset to think that way. It's never about your product. All right. If you guys want me to continue speaking like this, or if you guys want to go back to the 14 minutes or the 10-minute videos I used to make, let me know. For now, I like this. It lets me get a lot off of my chest. Feels good. And I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know if it's going to Spotify or if it's going to YouTube. It's going to go to YouTube. But I don't know if it's going to SoundCloud. I don't know. You guys let me know. But for now, it'll just be on YouTube. Maybe I'll share. I'm going to also I'm going to do clips I'm not going to post this one on the Kelby KO page. I'm going to post this on my original KAJ Slayer 4 YouTube page. Ooh. It's getting crazy out here, man. Let me know what you guys want to talk about. Do me a favor. Subscribe to this page. This is going to be like more of my personal thing that I'm doing. I just love talking about business. I love talking about the different ways that people view business, the different ways that people view the intricacies that come along with failures and successes. So subscribe to the page. I'm also going to be cutting them up and making clips. I think that's probably a smooth move. And that's that. My name is Kelby Joseph. This has been Top 3. I'll see you guys next time.